you're up for it, I'd love for a minute. Let's try it out here. This would be really cool. If you want to private message me, I would love to talk to you. If you could send me a message with your phone number, I'm going to call you. We'll give this a try. I'm going to call you for a second and we'll have a little chat. Awesome.
Hello.
Ryan.
What's up, man?
I love it. Finally.
What's going on?
You're my official first person who's called in here, or I've called.
Yes.
It's so funny. My wife tonight at dinner was like, this is kind of odd, man. Not too many people call people. They usually call in, but it's all
right.
good.
Yes.
It's all good. Well, man, tell me a little
cool,
bit real quick how old you are, how long you've been doing this, and what's going on.
Cool. So I'm 25. Got out of school in 2012. I graduated 2014. I'm sorry, and got into the wedding business pretty quickly. Was offered a job at a news station when I got out of college. Turned it down. Just went to my business and doing weddings. First year had about probably like 8 or 9, and progressively got more and more. Right now, this year I have about 26. And next year looking even better and a little bit more. Right now I live up in Baltimore in Maryland and really loving my job so far.
So do you do weddings full time right now?
Right now I have a part-time gig 3 days a week at a restaurant down the street, but my fiance just graduated law school. She's taking the bar next month. And then once she passes and securely gets her next job, I'm going to be quitting and then going full-time into weddings.
So tell me, you can share as much or as little as you want. I know I'm putting you on the spot here. So what are you not generating enough to fulfill your income right now with weddings, getting 26 some odd weddings?
Oh, no, I definitely am. The only thing of the reason why I have that security blanket of the other job right now is that we want to kill my fiance's debt quickly when she gets out. And we are also getting married this year.
Okay.
So
awesome. Congratulations, man.
Thank you. So I'm just waiting for the next couple of months for her to get wrapped up, secure a job, and I'll feel a lot more comfortable jumping full-time into my business.
Do you do anything else besides weddings within the video production side of things?
I flirted with real estate a little bit. Don't have my drone, so there's that.
Okay.
I really want to pass the drone test and do all that. But I do some music video work, some corporate work. I've done some political kind of like ads and stuff here in Maryland. But weddings is definitely the main thing.
And how much are you currently charging for weddings, if you don't mind sharing?
My most popular package is $1,800.
Okay.
My starter package is about $1,400. And then my biggest package is $2,500.
And how often are you booking the $2,500 package?
Next to never. I think I've sold maybe 3 of them.
And so you have 3 packages? You have a small, medium, large for all intents and purposes? Bronze, silver, gold.
Yeah, and 90 to 95% of people book the middle package, the $200 package.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So and that was how much you say that one was? $1,800?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I remember being taught that back in the day where I used to have like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Psychologically, it was supposed to push everybody to the 2,000 and all that.
Right.
And so obviously that's working for you. But what I would be curious. So what's the difference between the middle and the more expensive?
So the most expensive package comes with the second shooter. The other ones don't.
Okay.
I shoot almost all of my weddings by myself.
Okay.
And it has additional 4 hours of coverage and also a 72-hour turnaround, which is a long time for you. 3 times a day.
Sure. So you're saying it has an extra person, it has extra hours, and then it has a quicker turnaround.
Right.
Okay. And that's really... So aesthetically, the video per se doesn't look any different?
No.
Okay. I mean, that's going to be one thing right out of the gate is that idea that there's really nothing of major value to the client, to the couple, to want to pay, what you said, $2,500? So that's what, $700 more to get another person there, to get some more time. Now, do you feel at times, because here's what I used to see is that I used to see guys charge for drones, well, I didn't have drones back in the day, so I shouldn't say drones, but glide cams, and they charge to upload it to the internet and all these different things that were just DVDs even. I don't even know if you're doing DVDs anymore, but, at the time there were DVDs. I didn't even charge extra, so I did this unlimited DVDs. I had unlimited hours, and what I found is 99 people out of 100 didn't take advantage of these things. The average couple got 5 to 10 DVDs. I saw a lot of guys charging $25 to $50 per extra DVD. But what I saw is people weren't really buying them, but they'd go and get a DVD from Office Depot that was silver and Sharpie it and hand that out to their friends. They'd copy the DVD themselves, or they just wouldn't give it out at all. So I did that. The hours, I always found that my day was gone when I did a wedding.
Right.
Like there was nothing else to do that day. And so I found that I wanted to make the best video possible. So as a byproduct, again, for all intents and purposes, people typically, wherever I was at that time, would pay similar rates. And it all balanced out in my eyes because some people I would start at 8 or 9 in the morning, while others I didn't start till 12 or 1. But I wanted to make the best video possible. And the interesting thing is I found even when people booked a cheaper package, I would do everything in my power to make the best thing possible, just like how I was wired. And so as a byproduct, people got lucky who booked the cheaper stuff because they still got the more expensive thing for cheaper.
Because my cheapest package doesn't come with the highlight video. It's just like bare bones tripod.
Yeah, do you book that very often?
I mean, occasionally I'll get it, but even when I get those, I end up shooting a highlight video anyway because it's amazing marketing to not do it.
Like, it doesn't do anything for you. To create a boring video for someone does nothing. Like, you literally basically just made some money. And you also obviously more than likely are bored out of your mind because you're not even creating anything that you're even excited to look at.
Right.
Personally, I mean, if you think it helps, I mean, I would get rid of that. I mean, I made it, my biggest years were actually when I had one package. Now, a lot of guys used to argue, well, you're missing out on this, that, and the other thing and all this extra money. And I get some of that. But I also, what I did, your prices on your website?
They're not.
Okay. Yeah, because I had a point in time where the prices weren't on my website. I had basically one package. Again, they wouldn't have known that because really the packages weren't online. The prices weren't online. I had one main package that I offered them. And basically it was just, I'm going to rock this thing out for you or I'm not. There's no other way to get me. And I would always talk against, per se, all the other scenarios that other people could be doing. So that idea of, well, there's guys out there, I'd be selling against you. Well, there's guys out there who have these 4-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour packages, and then they leave it up to you, and you think, well, I don't know, I really only think I need 4 hours. I mean, I think you could get there 30 minutes before the ceremony and then get some photo session. We'll get the reception done stuff really quickly, and then we'll be good. And then, what happens to you is you miss out on all these things to make the best video possible because you're rushing, trying to get there, just an hour before the ceremony. And so I just went down to where I want to be a person who doesn't provide any stress to them whatsoever. It would be interesting to play with because right now you're more expensive. Nobody's really going to want it because in their eyes, probably an extra person makes no difference because probably they can't see a difference anywhere in why an extra person would matter. The extra hours, well, people again are going to just be like, well, I don't really need that. Because what I find is they don't know. Hopefully this is the first time they're getting married and hopefully the last time they're getting married. And they probably haven't looked into half as many videographers as you probably know exist and what packages and all these things are out there. So they really are looking for more for you to teach them and educate them rather than you asking them what they want or giving them these options to let them just decide what they want because they don't really know. And so what I found when I removed the options, it made it so much simpler because all the other guys who didn't provide a lot of wisdom and help and advice and I would let people know what's out there. Well, here's what you can expect from 1,000 to 3,000, 3,000 to 5,000, et cetera, et cetera. And you just kind of paint this picture of the landscape. If you become that trusted advisor and that friend and that person who's really passionate about letting them know all the options, when they look at other things or if you let them know why X, Y, and Z is bad, if they happen to hear that when they talk to somebody else, then they're going to be thinking, oh, you know what? Ryan told me that. Maybe I should think twice because then all of a sudden it's like you don't care one way or another. You just want to make sure they have all the information that they need. And I found that to be game over, man. I mean, that was huge because most people are just asking when's your date and how much you're willing to spend and how many hours you want, how many cameras you want, and they don't know.
Yeah, because I think for a lot of weddings anyway, I show up crazy early because in Maryland we have the Bay Bridge and a lot of my shoots on the other side of the Bay Bridge. Okay. And it gets backed up really quickly. So I always leave like crazy early to make sure that there's no traffic and all that. So I'm usually there for the majority of the day anyway.
Sure.
I guess my follow-up questions would be, should I post my prices on my website? Is that something you would advise to do or not?
I wouldn't do things. See, I think it can go a multitude of ways. My belief is that until you're wanting to turn people away, don't even put it. Now, some people could argue the fact that if you don't have them on there, then people don't call you either because they think, well, either you're too expensive or why can't you share it? I mean, I more lean towards I'm probably going to get more people to contact me as a byproduct of leaving them off of there because then if they like what they see and they're curious, they'll at least inquire versus if you put 2,000, anyone who is below 2,000 more than likely will not contact you at all. And what I found is when I was in a place of not overwhelm where it's like, man, God, I don't have enough time in the day to talk to anybody or get anything done because all I'm doing is talking to people, then I wanted to start to make it really difficult to actually get a hold of me, which I did do at one point in time. time. But in
Yeah.
the beginning, you want as many people as possible. So I'm talking to the person who, quite frankly, I won't even like book them because they only want to spend $800, and I'm not even going to go that low right now. All the way up to I took a $1,500 person and booked them for $2,500 because after they talked to me, they really, really liked me and then thought, okay, great. Now I'm booking this guy. I'll spend that extra money. Now they might not go from $1,500 to $5,500. They'll go up $500 to $1,000. I've seen that time and time again. I definitely lean towards not putting it on, talking to everybody, and I have had people who booked me who came up to me at future weddings and said the biggest mistake we had was trying to save $500 and get somebody else. We XYZ didn't get our video. They did a horrible job. Da 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 da. And so then I still booked all their friends, and I didn't even
awesome.
I didn't go to their wedding. So when you don't have this, I'm better than, or I don't have time for that, or I don't want to talk to these people because they don't want to spend any money. I just found that I treated them all the same. Now, granted, that again goes back to I'm imagining based on one thing you said, which you're in, and if you could, maybe we could do a follow-up thing here as well. If you go to the takemia.com and take that assessment there, let me ask you this question: do you get excited to have to talk to the couples, or do you like, I'd prefer to try to do this via email if I could? Where do you sit on that spectrum?
I like talking on the phone and I like Skyping. I prefer to not meet up.
Sure.
I mean, 100% I'll meet up with a couple if they want to.
Sure, of course.
I feel like at times I'm traveling 2-3 hours to meet up with somebody.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, no.
When it could be done over the phone or text or whatever, but not text, or email, Skype, phone call. I don't mind doing it whatsoever. If a couple wants to meet up, 100% I'm there.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't think it's important to meet up. I did that less and less through the years, but definitely the phone call is everything. If you can get them on the phone and have a conversation with them, I believe that's a game changer because there's so many much more introverted creatives who would prefer to not have to talk to people. They do everything in their power to do everything via email and text and messenger and all that. And I just believe the person who can get on the phone, be their friend, be friendly.
From last year, I was charging average of like $1,500, and this year I'm charging an average of $1,800. I was always cautious of putting my prices up because I didn't know if I would be charging more. I'm going to be shooting about like 6 more weddings this year, and I want to keep my ballpark weddings around that 25 kind of area.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm booking that many weddings and that's where I want to be and I can raise my price, that's why I was always so cautious to put my price on my website.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, right? Like if you were 2,000, you booked 20 weddings, it'd be $40,000. If you were 4,000 and you booked 10 weddings, you'd be at $40,000. You know, there's this interesting dynamic when it comes to pricing because, you know, people say I always say people are always out there, double your rates. I think that's a load of crap. I think if you're so in demand and you have more than you know what to do with, you're booking everybody that comes knocking down your door, then I don't even know necessarily to automatically double your rates, but you can definitely go up. What I did through the years is I kept going up by anywhere from $250 to $500, maybe $750 throughout the year. So I booked at a price that I was extremely confident in, and I booked maybe half of what I wanted to do. So somewhere between 10 to 13, and then I would raise it a little bit, and then I would raise it a little bit. And then I might even come back, but that was the thing about my prices. I mean, I never said this to a couple, but the reality is, you know, gas station prices change every day. Like there's so many things that change all the time. So, I mean, I had people who booked me like their family members, it was like 2 years separation, and they were complaining because one daughter was $1,000 and now I'm $2,500, and why can't we get the same price? Well, you evolve, you got better. There's all those types of things. So I'm not worried that I book a wedding today for $1,800, and then in 3 weeks I book a wedding for $2,200. I don't think that there's a problem there. But yes, obviously, as soon as you start putting the prices online, everybody can see everything, and then it's you can't play with that on a day-to-day basis sometimes, or on a weekly,
that was
basis.
my concern about that.
Yeah. So that's why, I think it's important to leave it off.
Your advice would be for me to have one package, basically what my middle package is right now, because, I mean, all the bigger one is just bring someone along with me.
Yeah.
So have the one package at a set rate. Like when people ask for package and pricing, do you just send them, this is what I offer you in one big sheet?
You know, it's funny, man. I used to literally have hour-long conversations, and 55 minutes in, they'd go, so how much is this? Because I hadn't told him
Right.
even what the price or anything was yet. Because I'm just giving them all these options. We're talking about things. I'm poking and prodding. Then I would just tell them as simple as for me, the package is more or less an unlimited package. Because usually I base it on the bride. So if the bride's getting ready, let's say she starts getting ready at 7. I say, well, I'm going to have you an hour and a half at least. You guys just kind of get going. I'm not going to be there right when you get out of bed or anything. So I'll get there sometime between 8:30 and 9:30, and then I would show up there. And then I said, really, we're going to get the first dances, bouquet, and, well, not too many people seem to do that anymore, but bouquet and garter, first dances, kind of cake, all that stuff. And then when it goes to what I called the fun dancing, I said, we'll stay for 20 or 30 minutes and then we'll leave. So usually that ends up being somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. So usually I'm starting between somewhere in 8:30 to 9:30 and done between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. And then from there, a lot of guys have all these different packages. This is what I'd be saying. A lot of these guys have all these different packages, different hours. And what I found is that I don't know exactly what I'm going to need and you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I want to be there for more or less the majority of the day so that I'm just ready. I don't want to be there. I've seen a lot of photographers who at 6 o'clock at night, which I just experienced recently again at a wedding I attended, where the photographer is like, if you don't get all XYZ done in the next 45 minutes, we're leaving or we're going to charge you an extra $500. I just think that's such a jerk move. And so I don't want...
And that happened at this past weekend. The photographer did that.
See, there you go. And so the more you can bring up these scenarios, the more you paint a picture, not only for the photographers, if they have or don't have yet, but the videographers. Because now the more you start to paint these pictures, the more they're going to think about these things when they talk to other people. Johnny Sue Photography or Videography down the road, they have a 4, 6, and 8 hour package. Am I going to run into that issue? I'm not going to run into that issue with Ryan. That's the thing I wanted to always do. If people say, well, what about long form videos? Because people used to say that to me. Well, it was long form and short form. And here's the package I literally had. It was unlimited, a 3 to 4.5 minute highlight video, the basic ceremony, basic reception. That was my best selling thing I ever did, was just that. Same day edit / highlight video for all intents and purposes, but one highlight video that was 3 to 5 minutes. The ceremony edit, reception edit, which was very basic. There was nothing fancy. It was just cut between typically 2 to 4 cameras at the ceremony, 2 cameras at the reception. There was typically never more than 2 of us there. This is when my just primo, everything was dialed in. This is what the package and stuff looked like. That was it. And then I did this unlimited DVD thing at the time because it was still primarily all DVDs. And I said, I always joke. I said, within reason. I said, if you really need 50, we'll talk about it and see what you plan on really doing with them. But I said, most people get 5 or 10 DVDs. And literally that's what happened. Most people got 5 or 10 DVDs. In fact, the one couple that got, I think, 50 of something, it was actually like an engagement video back in the day. I screwed up the spelling and I had to make another 50. Luckily, everything was so cheap. That's why I did it too, right? Like, I had already been paid enough money. I don't need to gouge them for another $500 to $1,000 for raw footage on a hard drive or DVDs, because it's like the whole DVD thing I did was less than $1. And I'd rather them get the premium looking DVD package from me and hand that out to 15 different people than to get 1 or 2 and just hand them out around to a couple people and maybe it doesn't even get seen by that many. With the packages, and then I could follow up with an email. Typically had it, some would say, can you send me an email with what that looks like? And then just write out unlimited hours, within, you can just make a simple thing in an email. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, or you can create a page that's kind of a private link on your site. You can tweak the pricing on it, but however which way is easiest for you, an email or a simple page on your site that's private that you can tweak here and there. But I just typically would get, are you available? I'd get them on the phone. I'd go through everything and then I just do a follow-up email. And that was it. I still do that today with my commercial clients, the events and conferences we do. Typically it's a conversation, like I'll have a conversation tomorrow. We'll talk for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, send them a simple email, and then I send a basic invoice. It says invoice/agreement, and it's literally, super simple. It tells the day, the days that we're filming, the deliverables, travel's included, and that's it. I just try to be the easiest vendor that people work with. That is one of my number one missions, is that when you deal with me, you're going to remember me because of how simple and easy and fun and a joyful experience it was, versus the person who nickel and dimed you into the ground and made everything so complicated and difficult. We take credit card and I lose percentage. I hear people all the time with that. If it's big enough and it's certain things, like I do take checks from time to time, but on a lot of it, I get paid quicker. Losing $100 out of 1,000, I don't care. I really don't. I'm
the same way.
Yeah, man. It's just about being friendly and easy to deal with and being simple. The simpler it is with there not being a million options, it's like they don't have to think about it, because you got to realize too, they don't know what you know. So the more convoluted your packages are with all this stuff that they don't even understand, they're either going to go with the guy who's cheaper, or they're going to go with the person who's potentially simpler that they can understand. I mean, I remember my mom saying one day, she's like, she was on Old Navy or something, and looking at shirts, and there's like 12 colors. And she doesn't end up buying anything because she can't decide between the 7 colors that she wants out of the 12. And she doesn't want to buy all 12, 7. I just believe in simplicity. And that's taken me very, very far, keeping things simple.
You stay for 20, 30 minutes of the fun dancing. What would you do if they had a sparkler exit and wanted you to stay for that?
Do you get
Have you ever run into that problem?
Do you get a lot of those?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably it's like a third of my weddings now, I think, if not half.
Okay. Well, that's so what time do those typically end then?
Usually it's at the very end of the reception. And I've had some people do a fake sparkler exit, but the DJ's usually on my butt about it because he doesn't want to disrupt the dancing and all that.
Yeah. That could be your one nuanced thing. I mean, you could play with this whole unlimited thing. You don't have to word it as unlimited in the sense that now all of a sudden they're like, well, our sparkler thing is going to be at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not being done with filming at 9:30 and then scratching my head until midnight to wait around to get a 4-second shot for the video. That's like in my same day edits. I mean, people used to say there's no dancing footage. 99.9% of my highlight videos had no dancing footage in them. The ones that did, I had a few shots from the first dance, and that was typically about it. And that was if they did something a little fancier. Now, part of the problem with that in the past was because the cameras weren't good enough, and so the footage typically just didn't look that good. But I'm a firm believer in what you show, people will expect. So if you don't ever show videos with sparkler things in it, they may not even think about that. Because that's what it was. All the videos that I had just didn't have it. So people never said anything. And if I brought it up, I would say, well, if it's really important, but when they really look at you as the expert, it's a lot easier for you to control how these things look and what's going to go down. And then if they have some pushback, I mean, you can work with it. I mean, again, you don't have to be an ass about it. At the same time, what you show, people will expect. And then if people bring things up, you can kind of talk about it, negotiate it. That could be a thing where you have to question what's that worth to you to stay till an extra 3 or 4 hours, till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning or something. You might in that case say, well, if it's amazing how little importance things become when you do add $250 or $500. Now all of a sudden it's like, you know what? That's okay. We don't need it that bad. And then they don't care, and that's what I found. Now, granted, I'll be honest, I'd never had that many of that ever happen. I mean, once they went into the fun dancing, that was the end of the reception for it kept going, but of course for what I got, and I could talk to that as well, right? Like, well, we'll get a little bit of that, but what happens is I find that a lot of the guests really don't appreciate a camera being pointed in their face the whole time. So we usually try to film 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes on the high end, but after that, we like to get out of there and let you guys just enjoy yourselves, because your friends get drunk and stupid and they don't want to be filmed. And so, I always find
big LED light in their face.
Yeah, exactly. So I always find angles at times, not because I don't want to make them something great. I do. And I had a lot. It just depends too. I mean, I had weddings where people just didn't dance. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, when there's 3 people on a dance floor, it just didn't make for epic footage to make them a great video. If there is, then it's going to look the same too, right? If they get out there immediately after the first dances and are rocking and rolling, if they're out there for 30 minutes, you can get a lot of stuff after 4 or 5 songs to make up a little snippet of an edit that's going to be good. So I just think simplicity, man. I mean, I had a guy who was barely booked. In fact, he just had a $25,000 day. He booked like 2 or 3 weddings and a corporate gig and a couple other things all in one day. And I got introduced to him, met him back in 2012, where he barely wanted to spend $40 on something. And then we did some coaching, and I remember him doing 2 or 3 years where he was barely, now you don't have this problem, but he was barely booking any weddings, but he didn't have any demand. Nobody knew who he was. He didn't have a reputation. And he was trying to charge like $2,000 and $3,000. And he just had somebody who 2 weeks prior said no, because he said $2,000. They wanted to spend $1,000. Emailed him back and said, hey, thought a lot about it. How about we meet in the middle at $1,500? $1,500. Basically, the person was overjoyed. I remember the email he sent me. She's like, oh my gosh, we really wanted you. And they booked at $1,500. So they booked for more than they were willing to spend, but that person wasn't wanting to go to $1,000. And sometimes people do just want some kind of deal. I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated, but sometimes you just meet him in the middle. And then that got him on a trajectory to where now he's charging, I think, $3,000 to $4,000, and he's getting 20 to 30 weddings in a year. And he's doing really well. But, you don't have the problem necessarily, it sounds like. Do you feel like you get a good chunk of leads as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like, especially this year has been I think the biggest year for me. Because my fiance wanted to get married in the middle of September, which is crazy wedding time. I try to advise her to do a different date. But my wedding date, I've had, I think at least 8 or 9 people ask me about my specific wedding date. And I've had so many double bookings that I've turned away to other videographers. I just give them those leads. And I mean, this past year has been crazy for me with the amount of leads that I've gotten.
That's fantastic, man. So there's where you're in a really good position then to just mess with the selling process and the price, because it sounds like a lot you kind of have dialed in and it's going well for you. So you're at a good place. If you've got enough leads, then you don't have to be like, well, if I want to do 20 weddings and I get 25 leads, I don't have much wiggle room to not book anybody. But if you want to book 25 weddings and you get 50 leads, then you have some wiggle to play around and experiment a little bit with the pricing and see where that's at. I think that's the important thing you can do, because it's amazing. I mean, think about $500 over 20 weddings. That's $10,000. Just a $500 increase. So my buddy Chris must have been looking at your work while we're talking. He says you're well above the $1,800 price range. So I haven't got to look, unfortunately, at your work right this second. But I mean, if he's saying, I mean, we've looked at a lot of different stuff. He's saying not sure of your competition out there. Now, what have you looked much into that in regards to? That's another question to ask. Where is the pricing of the people in your area sit?
Yeah, I think there's 2 of my buddies, and I know one charges, I think they both charge around the $2,500, $2,200 mark.
They're your friends? So when you send somebody, when you're booked, you're sending them to your friends who are more expensive than you? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I've just become complacent in the ballpark that I've been, and I know I'm going to sell it. And I think I've just have had that a little bit of fear of bumping my prices for the simple fact that I know I'm going to sell them at the price point that I'm at. And I know I'm getting enough leads to where I shouldn't be afraid to make that jump, but I just feel like my toes are on the edge of being able to do that. With everything too, with my fiance about to take the bar and get a new job, I've just been kind of hanging on to where I've been at, afraid to make that leap until she did that.
Sure.
But I'd like to do it now.
I mean, you should. And think about this too. I mean, all you have to do is do it by a little bit. You don't have to go from $1,800 to $3,500. I mean, try the next 5 leads that come in. Try them just at $2,000. Try this kind of holy grail package and explain to them and have it be $2,000 and see how that feels. That's how I am on the craziest level. Let's say I talk to 4 people the same day. I could tell every one of them a different price, quite frankly. Let's say you start at the highest. You're like, I'm going to try $2,500, and you talk to somebody and you get, whoa, that felt really bad. Then take it down to $2,200. See how that feels. I mean, it's all about, now granted, you got to realize too, I've said this before to people, there's an ocean and a bottle of water. A bottle of water holds, let's say, 12 ounces of water. Then there's the ocean's infinite. If you hold a hose or, a sink and you pour water for 8 hours into a water bottle, it holds 12 ounces. The ocean, you're never going to see the waves go back and forth. You're never going to affect the ocean with any amount of water you're going to be able to throw at it. But that's the thing. Right. If you've got a person who's dead hell bent set on $500 and you were to tell them $4,000, it doesn't matter. They're a water bottle. Their capacity, they might go up to $1,500, but in this day and age, the more and more there is competition, the more is people at $500, $1,000, $1,500, and all the way up to $10,000, then it's going to be hard for you to potentially differentiate and essentially see why they can get a guy who seemingly is the same at $1,000. And this is something you can bring up too, a difference between a professional and amateur. So you've been doing this, what you said, 4 years now?
Yeah, 4th year.
How many weddings have you done then in total? Do you know?
60, 70.
Yeah. So there's a big difference. We had people paint our house. They did a fantastic job, and on the surface. So I can look at a guy who shot 5 weddings, and I can look at you who shot 60 or 70. And let's just hypothetically say that the guy who shot handful, has work that really looks very similar to you. Visually, maybe aesthetically, the couple can't really see a big difference between your work and their work. But here's where you can bring up in the conversation again. The difference between the guy who's done 5 or 10 and the guy who's done 60 or 70 is that he's learning on your dime. Now, you still might be learning on their dime as well, but the reality is you've probably seen much more of the problems and challenges that are going to come up, and you can fix them fast and not have it affect anything, versus the guy who's done 5 or 10, something may come up he's never seen before, and he screws up big time, and now you lose. And so there's a reason why people typically charge far less. It's because their experience is far less, and they're more, I deem, more in the amateur level. And so as a byproduct, they're sitting there not confident. That's why they're not confident. And I would bring that up too. Now that you've done that, that's a competitive advantage, right? That you've done 60 or 70 weddings. This isn't your 6th or 7th wedding. And these are these nuances that I would bring up in conversation that help elevate you into why you're charging more, if that is a question. But remember the water bottle scenario. You don't judge everybody on the fact. That's why I bring up the price at the very end of the conversation, because by that time, I've also got a good feeling. Where are they having the wedding? How many guests are they having? All these different nuances, where then I can make a judgment based on how this person's having a conversation with me as to whether or not they're going to be super cheap potentially or willing to spend some more. I can't figure that out if I tell them right out of the gate. And that's another thing. Like, people would ask me, well, how much does a highlight video cost, even in non-wedding? Well, here's the thing. If I go out of my house, drive down the street, and end up at a business, and I film for 2 hours, and then I drive home and I edit for 2 hours, I just spent 4 hours, and I could make a 2-minute video for somebody. I could get B-roll, I could get testimonials, I could pick out the song, I could make the edit, I could do all that in 4 to 6 hours. Right. Now we make a 2-minute video where I get out of my house, I go over to Lambert International Airport, and I fly to Colorado, and then I'm there for 2.5 days, and I film 37 testimonials, and I come back, and an editor has to spend 3 days editing, and we make a 2-minute video. Right. It's still a 2-minute video, but one's going to take 10 times longer to make, and it visually might not look drastically different. That's the thing, where there's these nuances that the more and more, and I want to do more in this on these calls because it's hard. I'd have to almost I've done role play with people before where I just act like I'm wanting to book you, and we kind of go through what you would do. And I think I've found has really shined a light at times for me in regards to how people act on the phone, or how they ask questions, or how they treat people. Because if you're not super conversational and it's just about where's your location, it's very just cut and dry, you getting basic details just so you can be like, oh, okay, well, then it's $2,000, and you've talked to him for 10 minutes, and then there's no rapport built. There's nothing. Now you're just a commodity like all these other guys. The work. Cause I had one, where my buddy Chris, we were talking, and I had somebody that wanted me. I didn't do them anymore and whatnot. And he goes, who you recommend? I recommend 2 people. And then he goes, well, they both look the same and the prices look the same. And as a byproduct, he goes, who should I pick? I said, well, it's not up to me. You have to spend the day with them. I like them both. We'll just say equally. And so I'm not going to make that choice for you. You should meet with them. So he met with both of them. On the surface right now, the prices were the same, more or less. The work looked the same. And he ended up picking one over the other, but then I thought it was because of this personality thing. Well, lo and behold, I found out later that it was ultimately a price thing. The other person drove the price down last minute for different reasons, because it was a last minute thing. They felt bad. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. But it became a price thing, because at the point in time, they liked them both. The work looked the same. And at the time, the prices were the same. If it would have stayed the same, then it would have been probably a personality thing. Like, who do I like more? But once it came down to, oh, well, X dropped their price by $750. Now it's like, okay, well then there we go. That's who we'll go with. So you don't want to run into that where it just becomes a price war with people. And that's why the more you're a friend, an advisor, doesn't matter if you book me or not. That's why I said when I was at that stage where it's like, I'll talk to the person who almost blatantly, unless they're an ass about it. Like, I had that, and then I don't talk to those people. They're very unfriendly. But people who might not be able to book me, I'm still going to help them. Give them all this different advice and let them think about things. Because I've had people now, depending on the competition and other variables, less likely today than it was then. But I had people who would call me 3 months later and book me. After they did all this other research and they kept trying to dig and find somebody else. And then they're like, you know what? There's nobody else like that guy we talked to. There's nobody else like you, they'd be saying to me. You want to do that. And that's a competitive advantage. And I found that we're getting a lot of work, which I'd like to see your work anyways, like a recruiting thing here. I'm gonna have to look at your stuff because we're also looking for people to do events and highlights for entrepreneurial conferences and workshops and masterminds and things like that. I'm trying to build out more of a team of people who are willing to shoot and edit those. You don't necessarily have to do both. You can just shoot, or you can shoot and edit. Like I've got a guy right now who's in Toronto filming a workshop for a guy. We could definitely have a conversation about that as well, man.
Absolutely, man.
Cool, buddy. Well, go to takemia.com, take that assessment, and I'd love to potentially do a follow-up as well, is I want to root things in personality and behavior, because this is one of the nuances that I think people take for granted, because there are people who are out there right now shooting weddings. They're not going to succeed the same way that maybe you and I will succeed. Like if you're not willing to get on that phone and have that conversation, have that talk, become that friend, that advisor, just help them out. And we do that all the time with everything that we do, and it has been one of the biggest things I've seen for me and for others. When you're willing to do that, a lot of others aren't, and I've seen that in the event space. There's a lot of guys who are really bad at the business side of things and talking to people and communication, and we're getting the work because we're easy to deal with, we're friendly. So the more you ramp into that and you lean into that, the more you'll win over these guys who don't want to shoot weddings, right? And so you want to make sure you even bring that up. Like I'd be bringing that up today if I was talking to people. Well, there's other videographers out there who are shooting weddings. You know, they've done 5 or 10, but they think weddings are the easy thing to do, so they're shooting them while they'd rather be making a documentary film or XYZ. The more they start to think about these things, anybody else they talk to, they'll be like, oh my God, this guy's only filmed 8 weddings. And, you know, I don't know if I really want to go with him because, you know, what Ryan said. Like that'll be in the back of their mind, what Ryan said, you know, and that's just, dude, it's game changer if you can start thinking that way. And it makes a huge difference. So, man,
this was awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Oh, sweet.
That's
what I want.
The information that you gave me is so valuable, man.
Love it. Yes. Dude, this is, you made my evening, because this is exactly the direction that I've wanted to take what I'm doing here, because I love doing this more than anything. My buddy Chris, who's on here, like he's called me a million times through the years, and you know, we have these amazing conversations, and he's done really well through the years now. And I'm just like, man, I'm doing all these conversations. They're always in private. Nobody benefits from it besides, I mean, me and you. I mean, I enjoy it, but I'm like, I know there's other people listening who could benefit. Plus, you know, so it's like taking this right now, which I could have done with you, and it would have been nobody listening, and you would have gained the same thing you've gained, but now I'll be able to have stuff that other people can benefit from. So it's a win-win, hopefully, all the way around. But I appreciate you taking the time tonight yourself and popping on here and be willing to share. And like I said, take that assessment, let me know, and we can pop back on and do a little follow-up thing as well.
Cool. You said it was MIA?
TakeMIA.com. Yeah, just send me a message.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, buddy. Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Have a good night.
You too, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. All right. Rock and roll. We'll see you. I love it. See you, man.